click on here. So welcome everyone. It's great to see you again. Of course, this is to equip you with the tools on conquering a crisis. Anybody in here gone through a crisis before? Yeah, everybody, right? And that's part of the beauty in this is that the truth of the matter is, doesn't matter. Everybody just went around and said where they were from. It doesn't matter where you are geographically. Doesn't matter how old you are. Doesn't matter what color you are. Doesn't matter what gender you are. You're going to face a crisis. We all will. And that's something that's inescapable for every human. With that, it's something that connects us all. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to go through the PDF. There are 5 steps to help you conquer any crisis that you come into. I really like what Les Brown said. He said, you're either headed into a storm, you're in a storm, or you're leaving a storm. And that's where these 5 tools come into play. You know, regardless of what part you're in right now, you will use this at some point. So everybody good so far?
Yes.
Awesome. I'm going to share my screen. So what I'll ask you to do, and for those that are just listening into this, the very first step, crisis moment in your life. So as I'm speaking, start thinking about a crisis moment. Now, before we do that, does anybody have just a rough definition of what a crisis is, or in your own words?
It's something that takes you to a mental and emotional place that fights against each other and overtakes your thoughts in the moment of whatever that crisis is. It becomes a number one interference, priority, necessity, and challenge.
Beautiful, right? It consumes you. It doesn't matter what part it is or how small or large it is. I mean, a crisis consumes you. Your back is against the wall. That's part of the definition of the crisis. You don't really have any way to turn. You must act now. And a lot of times in our lives, we force ourselves into crisis, or we don't act until there's a crisis. These can be avoided. So, by the way, does anybody have one that you are comfortable with sharing? And this can be anything, big, small, adulthood, childhood, whatever it is. Any crisis that occurred in your life that you're comfortable sharing?
Yeah, I mean, for me, well, Coach, you and I have been one-on-one, so you know some of my crises. But for me, being in a young state of age, I had hit depression pretty hard last year, and fell into a crisis of I couldn't work mentally, couldn't physically do anything, didn't want to do anything, and lost it all. Right, literally had to restart. I was on top of the world, and the crisis was I lost it all. No money, nothing coming in. And the crisis of rebuilding and the fear of rebuilding just kind of, you really get your state of mind really challenged. And through that crisis, Coach, you got to me pretty at the end. you got me out of that crisis. I will say that, but that crisis itself really opened my eyes of having to take things slow and really take things step by step. So for me, that was a pretty big crisis. Still trying to finish that hole. And like you said, we're either in a storm or getting out of one or getting ready to walk into one. But I'm slowly trying to get out of mine. So that's something that I got going on right now with my crisis.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for sharing, Isaac. And real quick, you alluded to this, but how did you handle that crisis? I mean, you said step by step, right? How did you handle that crisis?
So for me, it was taking the emotions out of it, and that's probably the hardest part. For me, the fact of the matter is that I was feeling sorry for myself, and I was just continuously asking why. So what I had to do was really just take a step back, really breathe, find myself again. And then once you do that, you take the emotions out. At that point, then you take it the next step forward. And the next step forward was just simply getting back in tune with, why I'm valuable. Why am I matter, to myself? What is it that I'm doing for myself to take that next step forward instead of having to worry about, everybody else's opinion. And that's definitely step 2, is that you got to drown out other people's opinion. Their opinion of you, realistically, like Steve Harvey used to say, is none of your business. The people's opinion of you, it does not matter. Whatever whatever they got to say, they're going to say, and that's their life, and they're got nothing better to do than talk about your life, and your life must be going pretty great if that's all they do is talk about it. So that was step 2. And then step 3 was finally get back into the groove of things. And, I got back into work and got back into what I do best. And, now I'm on step 4, which is refining, my passion and getting back into, what I was meant to do. And so dealing with that crisis, taking it one step at a time by, taking a step back and just examining each step and what is the plan, what step are we going to take next, and ensuring that we continue that step. You can't deviate from that plan.
I love it. Man. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of power into what you said there, and I think that the first one you said is, we're going to get into this in a second here, but man, there are 2 domains that we live in as humans. We have natural law, which is nature, and we have human law, which is emotion. And we have to live under both of them. But what happens is, often when we go through a crisis, the most important thing or most valuable thing we can do, the first step, is to reduce the emotion involved and look at the facts. So we're going to get into that in a second. But thank you for sharing, Isaac. Super powerful. Like how you broke those steps down too. Does anybody else want to share a crisis moment that occurred in your life? No worries. All right. So shifting into the step number 1. And again, you guys don't have to send this to me or anything like that. Keep this for yourself. I challenge you to fill this out though, at least by the end of today. So again, when we look at step 1, and you guys are probably going to laugh at me when I say this story, but you've probably done this before yourself, but has anybody in here gone fishing before?
Oh yeah.
You ever gone fishing? You have? Okay, cool. When I was a kid, Kevin, you have too?
Yep.
Cool. When I was a kid, I remember I went fishing this one time and I caught this fish and I was so excited. It's probably like the 3rd fish I caught in my life or something like that. I don't know. But I catch this fish. I'm all excited. And we didn't keep it or anything. We just threw it back, released it. And I remember as soon as I caught it, it was a huge fish. And every 30 minutes that passed, the fish got bigger and bigger and bigger until I finally made it home to Mom. Mom, oh my goodness, you're never going to believe I caught this whale in the pond today. It was huge. This is what we do in a crisis. We start to exaggerate the story. Part of this is in the face of fear of criticism. What will other people say and what will other people think? And that's what, Isaac, you were starting to allude to earlier. The point is often when we get caught up behind the emotional side, we're not looking at the logic, right? Marlene's huge on this. When the emotion's high, the logic is low. When the logic is high, the emotion is low. So step number 1, the most important thing that we want to do when we're looking at the crisis, we want to reduce the emotion. We want to look at the facts, okay? This is what happened. And you almost explain this as if you were watching a video and sharing it in a courtroom, explaining, this is exactly what occurred. You want it to be understood by everybody, non-biased, and the facts, okay? You guys may or may not have seen me use this before, but I call this guy the perspective ball. This is a really powerful way for us to look. I mean, you can see it now, right? And even if I just turn it around a little bit, you'll see something different every time. You look at the top, it's different. You look at this side, you look at the bottom, it's different all around. Every time you look at some different vantage point of this, you're going to see something new. And that's what we want to do with a crisis. We can do this. Well, there are a couple ways we can do this, but essentially we're looking at all the different angles of this scenario. Okay. What are some of the ways we could track those perspectives? What are some of the ways we can track those perspectives?
What do you mean by track them? Like write them down or?
Yeah, exactly. Write it down, right? What's another example? I love technology. I have a lot of people now that instead of writing a journal entry, they'll just record it on their phone. You can do a journal entry on your phone in 30 seconds. And it's way more powerful too, by the way, because if I go back a year later and I look at a video of myself, I discern way more than if I go back and look at just words I wrote. You know, you can see your body language, you can see your voice inflection, you can see all of these other aspects that give you way more clarity on what you're seeing at that moment. So, any questions, thoughts, concerns on step number 1? Great. So again, the point is we want to see the moment as it is. We want to look at the fact, not the emotion. And how we will do this is by capturing this through writing it down, a video entry, some way that we're capturing these thoughts. Just running them through our mind is not enough. It's just not enough because it's just going to come right in one side and go right out the other. All right. So step number 1, we've been able to see the moment for what it was. Now we have to actually get to the truth and deal with it. We have to get to the truth and deal with it. There may be a lot of scenarios that this has occurred throughout your life, but are there any examples that anybody wants to give up right now for a moment that you did see the moment for what it was?
Yeah, right now. Actually, me and my girlfriend, we're getting ready to make some moves here, and going back to the emotion side of it, we put it aside, and today we kind of just simply saw it for what it was, is that we don't like what we do, we hate what we do, and at this point it's like, okay, we say these things, and it is what it is, and now what are we going to do about it? So realistically, seeing that this next move for us to get to where we need to go, we just have to accept the fact we're not meant to do this. This is not what we want to do. And now we got to just take that next step forward instead of, complaining about it or, again, tying the emotions back into it. And so seeing this for what it is a big eye opener. So now we're getting ready to make some big changes ourselves.
I love that. I love that. So, the moment, the thing that really stood out to me there, Isaac, is that you said that you and your girlfriend are not super happy with what you're doing right now on the work front, right? So it's like seeing it as it is okay, well, we have these gifts, we have these talents, we have all the stuff that we need. What the heck is really holding us back? What are the fears? Because the truth of the matter is, man, you and I both know, everybody in this room right now, if we went out into this world butt naked and lost absolutely everything, and we were forced to come back on top, we'd find a way to do it. There's a statistic out there. I don't know exactly who said this, but if you were to take all of the money in the entire world right now and evenly distribute it to every single person across the world, within less than a year, all of that money would go right back into the same hands.
Really?
That's crazy to think about. Well, why? Because people don't have the proper spending habits. If I give you $1 million right now and you don't already
That's
have
true.
proper budgeting or spending habits, what makes you think that you're going to have them automatically just because I gave you the money?
That's right.
You don't know how to manage money. You don't know how to manage money. If I give you money or don't give you money, you still can't manage money. So, when we think about getting to the truth and dealing with it, we saw the moment for what it is. I'll be vulnerable for a moment. There were moments in my life where I'll tell you like this. I was homeless in Hawaii. Now, partially that was a choice, but also I could have done things differently to avert that. I started working for a company that basically robbed us. They made us work for several weeks and then didn't pay us. And then the company just dissolved. They disappeared. I should have done more on my end to do the research. But if I just sat there in the emotion and I said, oh, woe was me. Oh, whoa, I don't have any money coming in. Oh, this, that, I've got to move, whatever it is, then you're trapped. So when you see the moment for what it is, and then you get to the truth and deal with it, now you're moving in the right direction, right? So what is the actual root of this crisis? Again, real talk. If we're in a financial situation, the root of this crisis is because we are doing habits or some patterns that are continuing to put us in the same place. If we make a habit or a pattern shift, then we're going to be in a different place. it's not easy. I'm not sitting here telling you that, oh, it's just the, snap of a finger and it's done, but that's what we have to do. So any moments where you guys got to the root of a scenario and it changed the outcome, and if it's all right, I'll throw this one out there, Marlene. I remember where you and your daughter had scenarios, and it seems like the more and more that the two of you communicated together and the more that you held your boundaries, you were able to get to the root way quicker.
That is absolutely true. In fact, she has made another move again, and I set the boundaries, and it was funny because Peter and I talked about it. I said, okay, I know my limitations. I don't need to get into discussions with her. So my boundary was to keep my distance. I'm there if she reaches out, and she did. But I gave it the time because Marlene likes to try and jump in and fix things. But I've learned that if it's going to be better, I need to remember my boundaries, stay within them, and it really does work out better in the end. And now all of a sudden I'm mom again. Sorry, I have to laugh.
Well, it's
it's the
comical
truth.
because it's tough, right? I mean,
Yes.
how many times
yes.
have we been in a scenario where somebody overstepped our boundaries and we never told them because of the fear of what they were going to think or say?
Yes, yes.
But the truth
Or the
is,
fear of retribution. Sometimes
exactly.
it's the fear of retribution. So it comes back to being wise enough to determine picking your battles. And the boundary setting is so imperative to our health, to our well-being, and to our worth. And not easy. You're right. It's not always easy, but it does work out. It may take some time, but it does work out.
Absolutely. So again, on step 2, what we're really doing is we've been able to identify the facts of the scenario.
Yes.
This happened, reduce the emotion. Step 2 is, okay, what is the root of this? Why is this happening now? And this helps us to prevent it in the future. Is it a limiting belief? Around the money concept, do I just have a limiting belief around money? Or maybe it's a money habit. Maybe I'm not appropriately spending. Maybe it's perspective. Maybe it just is a circumstance, by the way. That happens too. A circumstance came by, put us in a crisis. Boom. I can beat this, get out, and not see this one again. Right? So the next part.
I can combine 2 of those limiting habits. Because I have habit to limit myself. I'm a doer, I get things done, I'm a task doer, but then when it comes to doing my work for my marketing work or my outreach work or whatever, I limit my ability or power or strength to do it. It's a drainer for me, but I have to do it. I just wait till the last minute to do it,
Yeah. And that's tough. Would you identify that as an element of procrastination? Is that fair to say or no?
I don't know if it's a procrastination because I'm not a procrastinator in general, but it's more of making it a crisis so it makes me have to do it.
Yep.
So it's probably is procrastination, but it's not, it's limited. It's like just for these tasks, it's not for everything.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to doing laundry, dude, I'm on it.
Well, it's really interesting you bring that up, Kevin, because I myself have been guilty of this. I don't know if you guys have, but sometimes, let's say we have 1 million tasks to do and we start doing some of them. And in our hearts and subconsciously, we're like, this is not the most important task right now that I need to be doing. I know that there's something else I should be doing. I just don't want to do it, right? It's like that big, audacious task over there is where I should be spending my time. But I'm going to do these smaller tasks so I can avoid that as long as possible. I'm still productive, but in my heart, I know I should be doing this task over here. I've totally done that. So when we think about the limiting habits, I like that, Kevin, the limiting habits, maybe it's just a matter of managing our time. The real thing here, though, is that we want to get to that root so that we can healthily handle this in the future. We want to avoid this. I don't want this to happen again. So what can I do to prevent that? Any other questions or thoughts on this part before we shift?
Sounds like you have ADHD.
What's that?
Sounds like you have ADHD I'm like that. I found that out actually 2 days ago. I have ADHD. That's because I'll start something and then I just get distracted or I won't finish. And yeah, I got ADHD. So now I've found that out about myself. So I'm like, maybe you have ADHD.
I've been prescribed since I was 4, or I've been told I was. But so anyway, here's the scenario. We saw a crisis. We saw the moment for what it was, right? We faced the facts, or we viewed the facts. We avoided the emotion. Then we faced the moment. We got to the actual root. We spoke in truths. And then once we were able to get to the root, then, sorry, this light just fell right on me. Once we're able to get to the root and deal with it, the next part is we've got to create our vision for the future. In other words, this is the past. We've processed it. We've analyzed it. We've worked on it. We're moving on. When we say we create our vision, basically we're saying, hey, that's how we did it before, and it didn't serve me to the best of my ability. So I don't want to do it that way. The vision is, okay, if you were at your peak, at your best, how would it look and feel then? Right? So when we talk about creating that vision, it should scare you a little bit. If your goals don't scare you a little bit, they're too small. If you're crushing every one of your goals, they are too small. You're not challenging yourself enough. The vision should be scary. And guess what? Even if you don't hit it, it's never about that. It's never about actually changing the entire world. It's about who you become in the process. It's about the lives you change in the process. That's the most important part. That's what will last. You can go out there and set any material goal in the world, and that's great. But that doesn't carry as much weight as changing somebody else's life. It just doesn't, and it never will. So creating your vision, this is a whole entire journey. There are multiple facets to this. If you guys ever have any questions, or if you want to go through, I like to call this the vision quest. I love a vision quest. If you guys ever want to go through a good vision quest, let me know. Also, side note, I highly recommend that you have a vision board based on this vision quest and or a goal book. I personally have never met a millionaire in my life that did not have a goal book or a vision board. I've never seen it, right? You got to have clarity on the goals. You got to write them down. So we faced the crisis. We saw the facts. We got to the root of it and dealt with it head on. Then we've created our future for what we do want it to look like. The next thing that we need to do, any questions here before I move? Sorry, on the vision part, we're all good there? Great. So next we need to come up with a strategy, right? You can have the best goal, the best vision in the world, but if you don't have an actual way to get to it, it's just a dream. Now, I was a financial advisor for some time, and you guys have probably heard me say this before, but it's so true. There's something that separates the upper class and the lower class, right? You guys have heard me say this enough. Do you guys know where I'm going with this? Okay, so what is it, Isaac?
What separates the upper class and the middle class, from what I remember, is I want to say willpower. It's literally something so simple, but I want to say just the drive and the willpower from the difference. I can't honestly remember the exact word you said.
All good, man. The lower class will trade their time to get money back. The upper class will trade their money to get more time back. Money and time are two of our greatest commodities. If I had to pick one, I'd pick time. Every opportunity I had, right? Money comes and goes. So when we talk about step 4, when we talk about the role model, when we talk about creating your strategy, things that upper class people, that successful people do really well is they bring other people onto their team. I always think about like a Steve Jobs. Like Steve Jobs wasn't an engineer. He didn't make the laptops or the computers, but he was really good at marketing and firing his people up, and he held really high standards. So they made incredible products. But what Steve Jobs was really good at was bringing the right people onto the team to do the tasks that he wasn't good at, right? Like Kevin, you talked about this earlier about the marketing stuff. Man, if you absolutely loved every bit of your marketing, you'd be a marketing professional. So I'd venture to say, as much as you may or may not enjoy it, you're not absolutely in love with the marketing. It's just part of the admin. It's something that we have to do to get to that end result, right? So theoretically, the best thing to do would be to trade money, pay for somebody to do all the marketing for you so you don't have to, right? Now, that may or may not be a different conversation, but the point is, somebody helping you get to that end result is going to be the fastest way to get there. Any other questions or thoughts or stories or examples that you guys have on this? The biggest thing is that, and I want to be really clear here, when we say a role model, it's not to say that you're taking somebody and emulating everything they do, right? You shouldn't do that because you lose your own voice in that process. We're saying that you want to take your gifts and your ideas and your skills and have their strategy help you to fill the gaps, right? Because that person's not going to come and do the work for you, but they can help you fill those gaps. So, and in my opinion, the best part about this, it's going to save you time, it's going to save you money, and it's going to give you appropriate direction. They've already fallen in these places. Let that help you get that time back. Okay. Any other thoughts, questions, or comments on this part? By the way, I think this is a really important question. Who is someone that is where you want to be or could assist you in getting you where you want to be? Now, by the way, it doesn't have to be Kevin. It doesn't have to be Marlene. It doesn't have to be Isaac. It doesn't have to be me. You could go on LinkedIn. It could be Ed Milet. It could be Tony Robbins. It could be Serena Williams. It doesn't matter. If that person's out there and they exist, you can learn a lot from their journey. You can watch videos. You can do research. You can reach out to them or their team. There are a ton of ways to get. That's how I started working with Tony Robbins. I had to reach out to his team directly over and over and over. So identify somebody who is where you want to be or somebody who can assist you in getting you to where you want to be. And then figure out how you can get in touch with them. How can you get in touch with them? All right. Any questions on this before we move on? Great. So we're in a crisis. We stopped. We wrote all this down. We looked at the facts. We got to the actual root and dealt with it head on. We created a plan. Really, that's 3, the vision, right? We created our vision for what we want that future to look like. We brought somebody onto our team to help us create the proper strategy. The 5th and final step, once we've got to this point, we must give back. We must give back. Call this fulfillment, call it purpose, call it destiny, call it energy or karma, the law of attraction, whatever the heck you want to call it. If you have that knowledge or that skill set and you've gotten through difficult times, I guarantee you with nearly 8 billion people in the world, somebody else out there has gone through the same or a very similar situation to you. So it's our responsibility to help others get through their own endeavors. Often ego may get in the way of this, right? I know there have been moments before where and I'm curious if you guys have experienced this. There have been moments before where I've met somebody and I say, man, I know inarguably for a fact, I could change your life. And then something gets in the way, like resources. It's like, oh, well, I'd love to, but I can't afford it right now. Giving back is the ultimate drive, right? Now, as business owners, we can't just go out and give our services for free all the time, because then it will be devalued and we have bills to pay too. But giving back can come in multiple forms. It doesn't have to be your primary service. It doesn't have to be Kevin's one-on-one coaching. It doesn't have to be Isaac's speaking engagements. It doesn't have to be Marlene's cooking, right? Like, but it is on us to find a way to serve other people. So what are some examples of ways that we could give back based on a crisis that we've experienced? What are ways that we could give back?
Definitely counseling and sharing our journey with someone that they're right there. They're right there going through what you've done. Allow me to share with you not only what happened to me, but how I got through it.
Yep.
Allow me to share that with you.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Isaac?
Yeah, honestly, just, even with stuff going on here at work, for example, I had a gentleman yesterday who I could see it on his face. I see the stress. I see what he's going through, and I, got him a moment of myself and kind of spent 30 minutes with him. And he had found out that I do one-on-one sales coaching. And he goes, I know you usually charge for this, but can you help me out? I go, yeah, man, we're teammates, no big deal. And sat there, and today he closed like 3 lines. He sent me a text and he goes, man, the skill set you gave me right now, he goes, it really changed my perspective. And even our director of sales now, who's a really good friend of mine and my upper boss, same thing, I saw the stress that he's endured that I went through last year. And, it was really difficult, but I told him, I go, look, just got to slow it down, take it one step at a time. And these are just different things that you can do. And, now he's back and engaged into himself, because that's the one thing you can't do is you lose yourself. And if any of us can give any advice to anybody going through the crisis that we especially gone through, when you lose yourself, you lose it all. And it makes it really, really difficult. So just some of those examples, that I've used, and even what you do, what you do for me when I'm, we were one of those, right? I couldn't afford it anymore and everything, which is fine, but you still reached out and that's how I'm doing. You still kind of give me the right direction here and there, what to do and everything. So for me, there's a lot of different ways you can give back, but those are some of my ones that stick with me the most.
I love that, man. Yeah, that's a great example. And on that note, and I'd love to hear from Kevin as well, but on that note, something that always stood out to me is, I don't know if you guys have ever worked has anybody worked in a sales role? I know Isaac, obviously you have. Kevin, or you have Marlene as well. So in sales, it's different per industry. Every industry is a little bit different, but one thing that I personally experienced, I don't know if you guys experienced this, but in the insurance or the financial world, it is ridiculously cutthroat. That and real estate. Did you guys experience that in your sales organizations, or not as much?
Every day.
Wow.
Yeah, every day.
It's how your leader sets it up.
Yeah. One of the things that stood out to me about that is, like, if you have a cutthroat environment, it's really not conducive for the growth of the group. And that's really going back to what Isaac was saying there, is like, look, on this step 5, when we're talking about giving back, I remember being in that office and having these people, have really good sales weeks. And somebody would come up and try to talk to them and say, like, how'd you do it? I want to make money too. Like, how'd you make that sale? And they wouldn't tell them. They're like, oh, that's all. It's my team. I'll tell my teammates, you're not on my team. Go figure your own stuff out.
Wow.
And so, like, I started hosting workshops once a week of just giving back skills, going through the presentation, any little things like that. Why? Because I know that when I'm in that room and I start helping somebody else, it creates a culture of that. And now when I help that person, guess what? Now they're going to go help somebody else, and they're going to help somebody else. And before I know it, it's going to come back to me. So in a selfish way, we always want to give ourselves to others, not disrespectfully to ourselves. We must respect ourselves. But my point is once you've endured a crisis, you've endured something that really required you to dig deep emotionally and surmount some challenges, it's our responsibility to help somebody else do the same thing. You know, we're all connected in a way. So I love that story that you're sharing there, Isaac. You know, and in your point, Marlene, 100%, right? You said counseling, having a conversation, talking to somebody, pulling them aside, that can change somebody's life. Like, you never know what somebody else is going through. You could change somebody's life just by simply giving them a couple sales tips on the floor and having them close a couple deals. And now they made a couple extra $100, and now they have a better weekend, and it all comes around. So when you make it a point to give, it will come back. I see this all the time in the networking world. You know, I'll go into meetings all day long, every day, and I meet all these amazing people, and they say, oh, I'm going to give you all these introductions. They never introduce me to a single person. And that's totally fine. I don't expect them to introduce me. But equally, if I introduce you to 10 people and you don't make one to me, I'm not going to keep doing it. Right? You know, so there's almost like there's a fine line. It is our responsibility to give back. That does fall on our shoulders, but equally we have to do it respecting ourselves at the same time. We can't just give ourselves upwardly 100%, you know, and not get anything in return. And I don't say that vindictively or in a crude manner. I'm not saying like you have to gouge people, but anyway, does that make sense? Do you guys have any questions, thoughts on this part? Kevin, do you have any examples that you wanted to share either?
The sales world is great. And it's this connection group that I found my way to. It's amazing how it does just keep bleeding to itself. I'm doing a webinar next week about your mindset and basically being open to the possibilities of things and how you have to be, and I'm doing it for free just to share my insights and help other people, you know, get to a clear space. And I'm really looking forward to that and seeing what good things can come from it.
I love that, man. You know, so, and by the way, we started with this, Kevin, so I don't know if this plays into it. You and I haven't gotten this deep in conversation yet, but, you know, think about a crisis that you have experienced in the past. We started with this. What is a crisis moment in your life? And just pick one. If you think about that one moment that occurred, and you think about yourself, like if you had to take like a 10,000 foot view and look down on yourself and see yourself in that moment, what are the emotions that are going on? Probably pretty freaking tough, right? Pretty strenuous.
Self-doubt,
beat up,
just beat up, shoulders lumped over, you know, not giving people eye contact, you know.
What if you could take that away from somebody else?
Yeah.
Like, that's what number 5 is all about.
Yep.
Once you've experienced that pain, that depth, being beat up, the self-doubt, those critical conversations that we have, why the hell would you not go and help give that to somebody else? Like that's fulfillment, you know? But the one of the biggest things to this is you've got to fill your cup up first so that you can fill this into other people's cups. And that's why we go through this equation, because look, how are you going to sit here and give somebody advice on their crisis if you're not even able to get through your own crisis?
Mhm.
And then that's not an attack on anybody. I've been there myself. But the point is like, you know, if you want to learn how to be a millionaire, are you going to go and find a millionaire that's already done it? Or are you going to go ask the homeless person on the side of the street downtown? I'm going to go ask the millionaire that's already done it. Like that's just how it works. It's not that I'm judging the homeless person or anything against that person. It's just, if they haven't done it, how are they going to help me to do it? So we go through a crisis in our life, a terrible scenario. We see the moment. We just simply write down the fact okay, this is how I interpret it. This is actually what happened. Then we get to the root. Oh, well, I realized this scenario occurred because I didn't do this, or I did this repeatedly too long. Okay, you've been able to identify the root. Now we got to deal with that. And the way that we really deal with that is creating a vision for the future. We know what didn't work in the past. Now we need to know what we do want. Okay, great. Now you know what you want. You've got to come up with a proper strategy to get it. You can have the best boat, the best crew, or the best captain in the entire ocean. But if you don't have an end destination, you are just going to float around aimlessly. Arnold Schwarzenegger, one of my favorites, right? So once you're clear on that end destination, you got to come up with a strategy to get there. And now that you've actually attained that and you've done it and you're comfortable in that crisis, then we give back. We share this with other people. We give them the opportunity to get out of that crisis too. So any other questions, thoughts, snide remarks, any feedback or anything else that you guys have on this? Marlene?
Pete and I have been going through a challenge of, he's had to go back and forth to Louisiana on several trips for personal business, trying to resolve a financial situation. And he was gone for 10 days and it was very long hours for him. And of course, I was here on the phone with him and talking to him and being the good, solid support and trying to be the good, positive and really thinking things outside of the box. And as he was driving back from Louisiana, probably one of the most unique and best compliments, he said to me, he said, you know, you have grit. You gave good thoughts and helped me and you just handled it so well. And it's because of these kind of teachings that I had from you, Keegan, that, and it's a battle, but you have to keep that balance between the emotion and the
Fact.
Logic.
emotion and the logic. And many times when you're in a crisis, you have to be able to find a way to step out of your picture and look at it from different perspectives. That's where the good counseling of a good, solid person. There's a scripture in the Bible in the New Testament about not throwing your pearls to the swine. That is referring to making sure that when you're seeking counsel, you're seeking somebody who is good and solid. And what you do is you look at their life. You see what they've done. You see how they've accomplished. And a lot of this becoming a role model to someone, we never know who's watching us. And we have to live what we're walking and talking. It has to be seen. It has to line up. And, you know, when you got here about being a role model, the only way is for us to make sure that we're showing others that there is a way to, even we're always going into one, we're always coming out of one, or we're in one at the moment, how we handle it and how we stand up and we face it and we look at all the different angles and we forge forward. And these are wonderful guidelines. And I used them a lot while he was gone because it's important. I'm his partner. He's mine. And so I have to be solid. And it relates to business as well as personal for all of us.
Well, thank you for sharing. That was awesome, Marlene. I really love what you said there. Step out of the picture to see from the other perspectives. That was really cool. And I'm gonna go back and rewatch that so I get that quote down appropriately. But I love that. And then, you know, you're so right though. It's like, what are we doing when nobody's watching? There was this wedding that I went to. I love, you know how I love my stories, but there was a wedding that I went to last April. And believe it or not, these two individuals met in high school. They met their freshman year in high school. The guy's name was Eric, one of my best friends. And his wife to this day, her name is Amy. Okay. I was with them on their first date in high school. We're these little freshmen, you know, we're little guppies. And their wedding was canceled 6 times because of COVID.
Oh, wow.
So when they finally had it last April, I remember showing up and I was all excited to see my friends. I'd been in Virginia. They lived up north. I hadn't seen them in a while. And I remember walking in there and there was this one guy who pulled me aside. His name was Ben. And I didn't really know Ben too well. I'd met him only like 1 or 2 times in my life. And this man pulls me aside and we never really had a conversation or anything. He goes, "Man, your videos changed my life. You put this video out. I was super depressed. It just changed the way I looked at it." And I bring that up because of what you said, Marlene. You were saying you never really know who's watching, right? You never know whose life you're impacting. There are people out there witnessing you that may never comment. They may never like your stuff. They may never say anything to you. You might have no clue at all, but you're impacting their life. And it's so critical. Like there is a neighbor of where you just moved from, Marlene, in North Carolina, and I become a mentor to him. He faced some serious battles and had to go to a halfway house facing addiction. And when he got out, he sent me this message and was like, "Man, my mom found your videos on YouTube and started sending one to me every day I was gone." And they were
Wow.
like, "That changed my life." I have no idea. I haven't even met his mom. I've never met her. Right. And here, this video that I put together 2 years ago has impacted her. So thank you for sharing that, Marlene. I mean, I think that's just such a really important emphasis on the fact that, look, this is a tool. Put this in your toolbox.
Yes.
Use it when you need it. And then go and give it back to other people. Like, I come up with this stuff because I wanted to change somebody's life. And I may not even be the one directly handing it off. That's perfectly fine. But use this stuff because it works. So any other thoughts or questions or comments, guys?
Yeah, no, just kind of touching bases on giving back. You know, and you never know who is watching. That is correct. And we had a scene last week. I think it was Thursday. We were at a Petco. There's these 2 guys, and they got new dogs. You can see it. They're buying everything. They had 3 shopping carts full. They had the cages. They had everything. And my girlfriend and I were making conversation because we were there picking up stuff for our dogs. And simply just asked, you know, "Hey, how's everything going?" And made conversation, made a couple laughs. Well, when they were leaving, they had a lot of stuff, so they needed some help. So I told my girlfriend, I go, "Hey, just hang tight right here. I'm gonna go help them." I go, "They look like they need some help." So help the gentleman out and kind of just asked me some questions, and you know, just asked, you know, what made you do that? And I go, "Honestly, man, I go, just I've been in your shoes, and sometimes the helping hand is just nice, you know, even if it's just something as small as this." And he goes, "You know, I really appreciate that. Here's something for your troubles." And I don't look at it. He just hands it to me. I put it in my pocket. And like I said, dealing with some financial strengths in our lives right now. And I get in the car and I take out the wallet, and it was $400 cash. He handed me $400 cash. And as a spiritual person, I instantly broke down and I started to cry because I didn't help this gentleman for that. That's not what that was for. I was there simply just to make sure that he got an extra hand because he was telling me he had bad knees and it was really difficult for him to carry things. And, you know, and to him, he was like, "You just listen. You listen and you help." And I told my girlfriend, I was like, "I don't deserve like this. Like, this is not what it was meant for." But what it was and what I took it as was a reminder of the person who I actually am and who I want to be. and that is just just being a nice person, just being as nice as humanly possible, and trying to just, how about giving a helping hand? So yeah, you never know who's watching, but I will always say, just make sure you're always who you are supposed to be and who you want to be, and
Yes.
everything will always come back to you.
That's beautiful, man. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
And you're so right, Isaac. It's like, and I say this often as well, but there are so many people out there that probably have some say in your actions, your thoughts, whatever it might be. But every single day, you are the only person that goes to sleep evaluating your character.
That's true.
And you are the only person that wakes up and decides the day that you're going to live. That character always falls on us. It doesn't matter what somebody else thinks or says or feels or does about us. It does nothing to our actions. That's on us. So it always comes back to us, man. And, again, when you put that love and that energy and that good out into the world, it comes back. That's how it
Yes,
works.
does.
So,
Yes.
all right, guys, I got a little challenge for you here at the bottom. I'd love if you guys would, it's super quick, but again, just to make sure that you have this as a tool in your toolbox, would love for you to send this to me. It's basically just going through the top, right? And it's just these 3 steps right here. So go through in a crisis from up here. How would you handle it? How can you take these lessons to help others? So my ask of everybody in here today is if you can either email me this challenge, or if you can set up a quick call with me. It's only a 15-minute call. So either just schedule a 15-minute call with me, or send me the challenge.
Awesome.
Everybody good on that?
Yes.
Any other questions for me or anybody else in the group?
Oh, it's been a pleasure meeting all you. Thank you for sharing.
Oh,
You guys as well.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you all so much for your time. Kevin has a webinar coming up next week as well. So Kevin, if you're comfortable with it, feel free to send that in the chat. We want to support each other, right? So thank you guys for your time. I hope this was helpful and insightful. Please use this. And if you do use this, let me know how it goes. I'd love to hear about it. If you have any updates or tips or maybe something you'd change, let me know. I would love to hear it. Kevin just put that in the chat. So thank you for that. I'm registered. I'll be there. Hope to see you guys there. If anybody needs anything else, feel free to reach out. I love you guys.
Love you too.
Talk to you
Thank
later.
you.
Have a great
Have a
night.
wonderful one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.